call the December 13th study session combined board meeting to order. Mrs. Twitty had to be absent. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do any board members have modifications to the agenda? Good. Just one thing on my president's report, and I think most everyone was there, just to thank publicly some of our state legislators who were able to meet with us in a legislative session. Back last month now. Senators Dixon and Wasson were both there. Representatives Burleson, Leach, Dennison, and Thomas Long were there. A good discussion. We were able to highlight some of our ideas, talk about the Vision Project, and I think we got a lot of good feedback from them, and I hope they got a lot from us. So I just wanted to take a minute in the public forum to thank them.
Good.
And that's all I have. Dr. Ritter, you have a report.
I have a couple things. First of all, weather-wise, everybody was surprised with the ice, a little bit of an icy surface, and of course, I think we even surprised the kids because we didn't hear much from the kids, or the students. But either way, I just want to remind everybody that we are out early on those days, checking for road conditions, and eventually a decision is made. And we do call the universities and other districts all waiting for our decisions. So I just want you to know, and hopefully we won't have to have that this year at all. Secondly, yes, seniors, that includes you guys. But anyway, the thing I want to mention is that we had our third meeting today on the Kids First Initiative. Now, the Kids First Initiative is basically bringing all the different supports out there for families as well as students and children, and looking at ways to support children through food, clothing, hygiene, as well as maybe even in social services or social workers, and whatever, in transportation, on and on. Anyway, we have been able to really provide a really sharp focus, and food has been our focus, and we will be discussing with the board here before too long possibilities of looking for ways to help bring food to families or families to food over the weekends, and so we'll eventually come back to you with that possibility. Another thing, as far as Kids First Initiative, the food, the breakfast in the classroom seems to be getting some good traction. And what's interesting about the breakfast in the classrooms is that the kids, the students, want to get to school and are getting their parents out of bed to get them to school on time because they want to break bread and want to be there to be able to share breakfast in the classroom with their peers. And so that's really been a very powerful thing, and the data has really been good for that. And another thing that's happening is the breakfast in the classroom is meaning more kids are wanting to eat lunch, which is really a very positive thing as well. So we're continuing to look at that and roll that out. And Juanita Watts has been doing an awesome job with that, who heads up our food service. And then another thing I want to mention is that we had all 5 bands in the Christmas parade. It's the first time in a long time we've done that. It was really good weather, and they brought families with them, and it was just a great response. And Evangel University was the first time they were there, and I believe this is their first year for a marching band, so they were there as well. So it was a wonderful experience. Other than that, we're looking forward to celebrating the holidays and the end of the year. So thank you.
Why don't you go ahead with our special recognition of Central for the evening.
Okay, Dr. Harrell, please.
Good evening, Dr. Ritter, Dr. Prater, members of the board. It's again my privilege to be in front of you to celebrate Central High School, and in this case, not only their broadcast media group, but also their print journalism group. So we're very excited to have members of both teams here. Recently, in Minneapolis, the National Scholastic Press Association and Journalism Education Association Fall Convention was held. Central Intelligence is happy to again want to announce to bring home the Springfield Public School the first place Best of Show trophy for the 3rd time in 4 years. So a very exciting feat for CI. Central Intelligence also earned its third consecutive pacemaker. Central High School was the only school in the nation to earn a pacemaker for both its print and broadcast journalism programs. And I know that Ms. Lemon's going to share some more details with you when she steps up here. Also with us this evening, we have Ms. Deborah Garner. And Central High School's newspaper, the Central High Times, was awarded the pacemaker of the Journalism Education Association, National Scholastic Press Association Convention, and competition also held in Minneapolis. This was the first ever a pacemaker has been awarded to a Central Print Journalism class, and is the highest and most prestigious award given in any scholastic journalism competition. And with us this evening, we have Dr. Ron Snodgrass, who is going to introduce members of the staff and also students that are here with us. So, Dr. Snodgrass. On the spot, didn't I?
Yeah, that's okay. Well, this is always a fun time to celebrate, as Dr. Harrell said, the results of our students and our faculty. Debbie, you want to go first? Okay. What? Do you have some of the kids here with you, or just?
I have kids. They don't know that they might have to speak.
They don't have to talk. They just come up here. Mrs. Debbie Garner, a longtime staff member at Central High School. I know she's very proud of the accomplishments of her journalism staff for the Central High Times. And I'll say my piece. I just want to congratulate Debbie and Nicole. These things don't happen by accident. They take great leaders in the classroom, and plus the dedication of a lot of some great kids. And so as a team effort, and I just want to thank Debbie and Nicole for their leadership in these programs, and we're getting some great results, and it's putting Springfield Public Schools on the national map as well as Central High School, and it's a very proud moment for our school district as well as our high school. So just tell them about your rewards and congratulations. So
Well, these are students both from yearbook and newspaper, and yearbook didn't win a pacemaker, but they also compete in the same competitions. And I would like to just mention, besides that, we had some individual award winners, and they have competed regionally this fall. Unfortunately, about 12 of those newspaper winners graduated last year, and so it's exciting to tell you that they have won some regional awards as beginners. So 2 returned from the newspaper staff, and we're kind of rebuilding, starting over, and expecting good things. The other thing I'm very proud of, all of them, is the hard work and dedication they put in, and they spend more time than you would ever imagine working and sweating over the things that they write and pictures they take and pages that they design. And I was very proud to go with them and have them come tonight so you could meet them. So thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Before I start, I do want to say when we were at the airport to leave for Minneapolis that Parker McKenna was getting on a plane that day, checking in at the same time, and he wished us good luck. So we called him our good luck charm that weekend.
Yeah.
now I get to go to every trip.
That's right. San Antonio next year. So we are very happy again to be standing here and bringing home that Best of Show trophy for the 3rd time in 4 years. I've done a lot of research, and no school in the nation ever has achieved that feat. So it's huge to be that consistent for so many years, and it takes a lot of dedication and hard work, as Ms. Garner said, to be able to sustain that year after year after year. It's also our 3rd consecutive pacemaker. When we go to nationals now, schools say, "Oh, you're from CI?" And we say, "Oh, yes, we are." And we are very proud to represent not only Central, but Springfield, Missouri, and really put it on the map. So out of more than 4,200 schools that competed, CI also brought home more individual awards than any other school in the nation. And the announcer from the podium said, "Where is this Central High School?" Stopped the award ceremony and said that, and we were happy to yell out, "MO," and let them know where we were from. So I do have some of the award winners here with us tonight, and they'll just raise their hands. So winning honorable mentions were Valerie Quirk and Sydney Ackerman. Excellent awards were Justin Dias, Jeffrey Klein and Tori Burris. And I do want to mention that they created an entire website in 6 hours. So that's huge, huge award. Dylan Lyon also won excellence. Sarah Smith, Alex Scranton, Yoonji Kim, Lucy Puck, and Corey Sponsler. And our Superior Award winners were Adam Weddle, Adam, where are you? This is my little Adam. He's a freshman who won a Superior Award. So, again, I don't even know if that's ever happened ever. Kayla Bunselmeyer, Emily O'Reilly, Ian McEllier, Nancy Fairbank, Kinsey Inman, and Isabel Bala. And I do want to, where's Isabel? Isabel is our student news director this year who leads our staff, but I do want to give a special recognition. She's gone to nationals 3 years and has won a Superior Award all 3 years. And it took a lot of research, and I haven't found another student who's ever done this before. They may be way back in the 80s, but in the recent future, definitely no broadcast student has ever placed Superior 3 years in a row. So this is a huge honor, and I'm very proud of her. So, yay. And we do have a lot of parents in the room, and you know, some of you have had students who've gone through my program. You can't do this without parents who pay for very expensive laptops and very expensive trips to Minneapolis and let their students work hours and hours in the studio and never really ask, well, they may ask, what are you doing in there? But they're very supportive, and we couldn't do it without our parents and, of course, supportive board members and a supportive principal. So thank you very much for your time. We're glad to be back.
Well, congratulations to Dr. Snodgrass and Mrs. Carter and Ms. Lemon and all the students. You know, some of these students have been here enough that they could probably function as board members, because some of the awards they've received keep bringing them back and back. And students, feel free to stay if you want a riveting rest of the meeting, or if you have homework to do. We're not going to, our feelings aren't hurt if you need to slip out.
They're all slipping out.
They're slipping out.
I could just make a quick comment while they're going. You know, you talk about Central and being here all the time, and Hillcrest is here all the time. They really are here all the time, but when you think about what they're here for, you know, it's not best in Springfield or best in the conference or best in the region or best in the state. It's best in the nation.
Yep.
And you know, I know we celebrate, but boy, you know, it's hard to just keep celebrating them all the time because they keep doing it. But when you think about something, a high school in Springfield doing something that no high school's ever done, you know, and last year we had Hillcrest come and had done something that no high school had ever done. We have kids that have done things that no kid has ever done, all in Springfield, from Springfield Public Schools. And so it reminds me that, you know, as a school board member, we got lots and lots of problems that we deal with every day as a district, and you know, we're trying to get better every day, and there are portions of what we do we need to get better in, but boy, we do some things right, and our kids do some things right, and our staff do things right, and I think that that's really important to continue to highlight and to think about as we, you know, talk about and work on all the things that we've got to get better at. But boy, it really is amazing to me to see this and to realize this is not just regional awards, or, you know, these are pretty prestigious things that are going on right here in Springfield, and it's pretty impressive.
Thank you. We have public comments on agenda items. Let me remind our speakers it's recommended that you submit your request prior to the meeting. Comments limited to 5 minutes. It's inappropriate to address the board about individual students or staff members by name in open meeting. If you have concerns about individuals, they should be addressed to the appropriate administrative supervisors in the schools or the district office. And our commenter tonight is David Aubrey.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add a little bit to what Mr. Hosmer said. Someone who had a 30-plus year career in journalism, starting with a Royal typewriter and ending wondering what the heck a blog is, I was really encouraged by what I saw, because that generation, the younger generation, is going to face the kind of change in the media industry. Newspapers, et cetera, are under such turmoil right now that I hope they can figure out how to do it and maintain the values that I know our teachers are instilling in them. And so it's really, I think it's really exciting to see these kids interested in continuing the tradition of American journalism. I also have to be sorry I've come to this issue very late because I did not find today, I want to talk about the Studi Westport bid. I did not find about that we had proceeded so far in this process of the new school until I read in the paper this morning. But I do also want to say that I have lived in 14 different communities and overseas, and I am familiar with many, many other communities. And as I go around town and see the progress that this board, this administration have done with the bond issue and the ongoing renovations, refurbishing, renewal and rebuilding and new building, that this community has a great deal of gratitude to you, members of the board, and to the administration. I have been through many bond elections over the years and seen many communities construct new buildings, and I have never seen anyone do it as well as Springfield has done. The buildings are beautiful. They are well designed. My understanding is they're brought in on budget. You just have, I don't think there's any community in the country has a better physical infrastructure than Springfield does. So I'm really it's just really remarkably admirable of what you people have done and what the community has done in support of your efforts. However, I do have to say that I'm not very pleased with what's going on with the Westport Studi project because a couple of years ago, I think we were missing a great opportunity, and I'll go into that a little bit. But a couple of years ago, I wrote an op-ed column in the News Leader advocating what are called community schools and saying that Westport Studi would be an ideal place for a community school. I think a lot of you know this concept, and maybe I'll get into it a little bit just to make sure we all know what we're talking about. That column got a response from Teresa Bledsoe of the district, and I want to read one thing that she did write on a February 13th, 2010. The columns I wrote suggested this thing has already been processed, already gone, and the definition of Studi Westport, what it would be, was already resolved. She says, before the architect puts pen to paper, there will be a number of opportunities for the Westport Studi community, students, parents, faculty, and community members to offer input on the building's design and function. One of the first steps in the design process will be to hold a formal charrette, a process conducted over a period of days when stakeholders offer input. Now, charrette, I had to thank Ms. Bledsoe for teaching me a new word. I looked it up on Wikipedia. A charrette is a method for organizing thoughts from experts and the public into a structured medium that is unrestricted and conducive to the creativity and development of a myriad of scenarios. I talked to Ms. Bledsoe today, and it was clear that no such process had occurred on Studi Westport. She said that maybe the principal at Westport had talked to a few people, but there's certainly nothing that would justify a fancy French word like charrette. So I think the process of such a big project, $11.5 million, is important, and this process clearly is laid out by the administration, has not been followed. I think that is something that has to be noted. But perhaps more important is that the community school, I think a lot of you are familiar with the community schools, pioneered in Chicago by Arnie Duncan, the Harlem Zone Project. There's one in Omaha called the Building Brighter Futures. Tulsa has 3 of them, the East Durham, North Carolina. It's where communities gather together and pull resources and focus on children, surround them with social services as well as an academic program. This idea is absolutely, in my mind, perfect for Westport Studi. As you know, these two schools have among the highest free and reduced lunch populations in our community. Their test scores, their MAP scores are not where we want them to be. I know a lot of people would say that it's the kids' fault, just blame the children for their plight, and I think some echoes of that we've heard in the current Republican presidential debate. But what I'm asking you to do is hold off on the bid today because we need to discuss this issue. We can lose a golden opportunity to build a community school at this site among the neediest kids. Dr. Ritter mentioned the Kids First meeting today, and my understanding is that the issue did come up at that meeting. But if we go ahead now and do the Studi Westport as presently presented, we will not be able to do what we can do for these kids. At least have the bid, rewrite the bid so we can expand it to encompass this program. There's even federal money available for this through the Promised Neighborhood Plan adopted by the Obama administration. So we asked that quickly, knowing politics, that those monies may not be there very much longer, knowing what could happen next year. So what I'm asking you is perhaps as a pilot program, we could find out. I know people are talking about Reed and Pipkin, maybe future bond issues, but we can develop the program. We can make it work. I'm asking you, for the kids' sake, let's hold off on this bid. Let's look at the community school idea. I know Dr. Ritter is very familiar with this, and I think we are going to miss a golden opportunity. And I really appreciate your time, and I'm sorry I ran over.
Thank you, Mr. Aubrey. And we had no other public comments, Ms. Luton? Okay. Let's go to 7.01, our information items, and the Missouri School Board Association Policy Services. Dr. Ritter?
Right. We discussed this at one time. I believe it was the last time we were came together here. And if you could turn to your document, you could see where the policy services that we're looking at is from MSBA, Missouri School Board Association. And what they do is they look at the different sources as far as developing policy. Most of it, of course, is legislative, but they also are looking at issues that are coming down from DESE, federal programs, media centers, nurses, health programs, health initiatives, all the different facets as far as policy is concerned. And then they put that together, and eventually we, on an annual basis, update, or they will upgrade or update our policies, and then eventually we have the latest policies always in front of us, and that does give us really a clear focus as far as what is, how we are, or what we need to do as far as being compliant with policies. So we can create our own policy through this process. They do the work as far as creating a state policy as well as federal policies. So I think it's just an excellent initiative, and in fact, visiting with a person who probably would lose the most money out of this that's our attorney. He says this is a very smart thing to do as far as saving money, and so it's not saying that he's expensive, but either way, I do think that this is a very focused, concentrated team that puts together policy and really is in the know. So I would suggest that if the board's okay, we move forward, and then the next time we come together and the board votes, you do not have to have a roll call vote on this. And we will move forward and begin the process as soon as possible if everybody's okay with that. Anybody have any questions?
Just a clarification for our public. So it's really that we've been paying someone
Right.
to monitor these policies for us, and as a member of MSBA, this is an additional service that we can access for significant savings and really make our policies much more consistent, and the evaluation of them or the review of them more timely, and eliminate the paper piece of it.
On the other, yes, that's another one is savings of the paper. But the other thing is that we can create our own, and then eventually they take that and align it with and help us make sure that we're not redundant with state policy or federal policy as well. So, yes, it's really going to help us be more efficient and effective as far as governance is concerned. So,
I know as we've changed and added policy since I've been on the board, that we've already had the guidance of MSBA on a lot of policies, because we hear from administration that this is an MSBA policy, MSBA recommended policy, and we're not paying anything for anything other than what we're already paying MSBA as a member district, correct?
that's correct.
So, so this is something in addition
Right.
to what we're already getting. I mean, I guess my initial reaction was seems like a lot of money basically to not do too much, but so my thought would be is if there's a way to quantify what we've been paying per year, as opposed to you just saying we're going to save some money. If we can quantify what we paid per year to ransom for this, and see this is a cost saver, then I guess I'd have no objection to it. But if we can't quantify that, then I don't know that we get enough value out of this to make it worth the effort.
Well, let me explain maybe further that my staff, to catch up with these policies, especially board policies relating to your own governance as a board, it's going to take an awful lot of time. I mean, we haven't kept up it like we should. So that's another aspect of it that I really didn't explain. But either way, yes, we can come forward and show that. No problem at all.
I mean, I'd like to see that. And the other thing is more of a philosophical thing is, we can have some outside agency drop 15 policies in our lap, and then we can vote on those 15 policies, and all of a sudden we've got policies. I think part of the idea of policies is this board looks at a policy, sees that a policy is needed, and then creates a policy that works for this board, and doesn't particularly, may not be a policy at MSBA in the kind of one-size-fits-all policy world says, here's an MSBA approved policy, which all may be fine and good. And I think obviously it's got to align with statute, it's got to align with regulations and all that. And that's, I know, very important. And we don't want to have policies that are outdated. But I guess I'm just not getting, why having an outside agency do all of this for us is philosophically what we want to be doing as a board.
Well, one comment, excuse me. They don't dictate what our policies are going to be. We still have to approve the policies, and it still has to come through the discussion process with the board as if Ransom was doing it. So that doesn't change. They don't drop a little bomb on us and say, here's your new policy, and do that, because they will go through all 450 of our policies and make sure they're consistent and accurate and up to date instead of 15 years old. And we don't have to have people monitoring our policies to make sure the laws have changed or haven't changed, to update them every quarter that they do. And I appreciate your comment about the savings. I think that needs to be looked at. Will it save us money over the fact of we'll have better service? Well, I mean, we'll have a better policy manual. We'll have an up-to-date policy manual. But just based on time spent by staff and time spent by Ransom, I think it's a good deal, but I do think the quantification needs to be. I think that's a good idea. That what are we spending on it, and rather than just go spend the money to do that.
Well,
Trainer.
I think we've been going through an audit thing, and we've talked about the cost of time for our staff. We don't, as a board, spend very much time looking at policies and updating policies. We had a committee that did that, and then just on a couple of issues, and then we said, we need to go back and look at all the board, who is we? It wasn't going to be us. It was going to be the administration and their team looking at our policies. So when you start looking at time, and we talked about the audit, their time doing that, keeping 400 and some policies updated, and we've got some 15 years old, probably somebody found some other things that were more important than looking at policies. So I think it is important that we keep our policies updated, and the way we did it in the past was not an organized, one point in time I remember being on the board, and we'd do so many policies a year, and we'd bring so many policies to us a quarter. Well, that came to the board table, but there was no board member spending time bringing all that to us. So this is staff time. So when you're looking at money, it's not just paying the attorney, but it's paying our staff that are doing our board policies, and they could be doing some things on teaching and learning. So that to me needs to be included. This is not just a $4,950 issue. I think it's a bigger issue than that. And if we want to have policies that are updated and consistent, and then this is one way to do it, or we can have our own staff do it and maybe come up with a better way, and we've done it, that we find our policies 15 years old and outdated and don't even need to be there.
we were ready to roll up our sleeves and go to work on it. That's why we're here. That's why we're at this point. And rather than taking staff, remember, we're lean, taking staff time to be able to do that, this was far better for us to be able to update the board policies. That's really where it came from. It came out of that ad hoc committee looking at board policies and realizing all the work that needed to be done to update the policies. So that's why we're here. So,
Question. Even considering this process, we would still want our staff to review these policies to make those adaptations that are required to meet our unique district needs. So that will still require some staff time, even though they're updated, to put that piece in place. Is that correct?
that's correct. That is correct.
You know, to me, this seems like a fantastic idea because we're pulling other brains into the system, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel every time it turns around. It'll be hard to put a dollar to cost savings, but you can imagine with staff time and with legal and with the potential expense of having an inappropriate or illegal policy, this I think can protect us for many, you know, by having ours reviewed can certainly protect us for.
And I'm not figures lie and liars figure here. I'm not an accountant, but you know, if you figure if we're paying $30 an hour average salary per, and I'm pulling that right out of, I have no idea, but that sounded good to me. You know, out of the cost of what we'd be paying, you're looking about 200 man hours a year.
Yeah. Well, plus ransoms hours.
I'm just talking about man hours a year. That's and so you know, no, the numbers aren't there as far as the calculation, or they need to be, but I suspect we're spending that kind of time easily on policy review and development. But you know, I think that number needs to be calculated better than what I'm just doing here on the back of an envelope. So,
questions on Mr. Hosmer?
And it's not a big fee, and I don't want to belabor this too much, but you know, I think there is some good with the time that staff looks at our policies to make sure our policies work. Now, and I don't know what this thing is going to do, whether it's going to be, we got an MSBA policy kind of like that's a lot sooner, boom, there you go. I'm not going to look at ours. I mean, I don't know that you're going to get a lot of, hey, Springfield, we looked at this policy and you might want to tweak this. It might work better if you tweak this because Central really has an issue with this. Well, they're not going to do that. They're going to say, you know, the latest, you know, policy F6 is this, and here you go, Springfield. I think that's what, and obviously there's going to be some legal things and some other issues that I think you'd want to have. So I guess what I'd like is just a better idea of why this is going to make this situation better, our policies better, and you know what the cost savings are going to be. Because I think it is important that we look at our policies closely from time to time to make sure that they continue to work for Springfield and not that they align with Jeff City. Because my guess is a lot of what we're going to get from MSBA is, hey, Springfield, align with Jeff City, because we've got this contract with 300 other districts. We're not looking at Springfield versus Rockwood to see which one works better. We're saying, we're saying we got a template for 500 policies, and we want you on that template. Maybe that's a good thing, and again, maybe there's a cost savings.
No,
but
I don't even think that's right, is it?
No, North Kansas City, I called them, they have it, and they said this was a lifesaver. They said it made it more efficient, effective. They had confidence as far as state statute, board policy was very easy to align, and they had the ability to be able to adjust policy to best meet their needs. See, so it's just basically like, okay, it's a template, but then you adjust around that. The flexibility is around that. So, but I'm hearing from the board that, well, I don't know if it's a majority. Anyway, you'd like to get a cost benefit for this, including staff time related to that cost benefit.
I don't think that was a majority, but I think two people
that's what I meant.
asked.
Okay, that's two people.
Now, on the other hand, I might argue how much staff time is going to take to put that together.
Yeah,
So,
I think there's a significant savings there. Now, whether
I could still
how
do
much
it.
time you do it. I just, I'm not doing
So
it to create work.
You'll
I'm
provide us
just-
some information back at our next board meeting in January.
Yes.
Could,
Good. All right.
could we
Thank
find
you.
out what districts do MSBA?
Yeah, I have that listing. There's quite a few.
Yeah, well, we could then access that to see that it's some districts our size, that if we want to contact them and ask them, we can do that.
All right. Thank you. We'll have a report back next meeting. Facility usage fee update, Mr. Chodas.
Thank you. Recently, a new facility usage fee schedule was adopted, and though we strive for clarity and completeness in everything we do, sometimes there's a bit of a hiccup, and some questions came to us via the PTA, and I had the pleasure of opening a line of communication with Don Thompson, who's the president of the Springfield PTA, an organization whose sole purpose is the benefit of Springfield School District. Don and I had a number of communications. I talked it over with my staff, discussed it with Cabinet, and we are going to apply the facility fee schedule to the PTA such that no fees will be charged to the PTA during weekdays or weeknights on days in which school is in session, and that the normal fees per the district fee schedule be charged during the weekend and any other days in which school is not in session, for example, holidays or summer, etc. Don't let the simplicity of that fool you. There was a lot of communication back and forth. Don Thompson presented it, our proposal, to the Springfield Council PTA Executive Board. They voted on it and they approved it 9-1. Any questions?
Ms. Callen.
Well, in my previous life, I was a PTA president, and I vividly remember having to pay some fees for custodial and other services beyond the workday on the weekend. So that piece wouldn't necessarily be new. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I think it's consistent with at least what I was, what procedure I was following back in the day.
Other questions? We passed a board policy several months ago. Is there enough wiggle room in that policy that when you apply this scenario to it, it works, or will we need to revisit that policy?
We are not proposing to revisit that at this time.
Okay. We'll allow you and staff to interpret. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
4 action items tonight. 8.01 is the premium product maintenance and support plan for the special ed reading and math curriculum.
Dr. Harrell? Oh, Ms. Krause. Okay.
Good evening. We are coming up on our second year of finishing implementing Read 180 and System 44 in our secondary sites, still having amazing reading growth with our students. We used the ARA money to purchase that initially, as you all will remember, and then this year we have implemented some math resources through Scholastic that we use some ARA money for. In our initial purchase, we purchased a 2-year product support tech plan that covers a variety of things, including the progress monitoring tools that we use, the Scholastic Reading Inventory, the Scholastic Phonetic Inventory, reading counts, some of those things. It also includes the ITS, which is the Interactive Teaching System, and thanks to the BOMB project and all the smart boards in our classroom, our teachers are really using the ITS to the fullest. And so that is a part of this product support. So in revisiting that, we really felt that it was a valuable support to have. We've received many upgrades in the 2 years that we would not have gotten if we didn't have it. So we've worked with Scholastic to come up with the best plan, and we would like to extend that product support through January of 2015 for our 28 sites. We have 3 of those are K-8, so really we have 31 separate schools that are implementing now. And so we're before you tonight to ask that you approve a recommendation for purchasing the Premium Product Maintenance Support Plan using Part B federal special education dollars for the 28 sites at a total cost of $171,993.34. Again, that would be in our 11-12 Part B budget. And we're happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Ms. Krause? Good. We have a recommendation that the Board of Education approve the recommendation for purchasing the Premium Product Maintenance and Support Plan for 28 sites through January 1, 2015, as presented for a budget cost of $171,993.34. Expenditures included in the 11-12 Special Education Part B budget.
I'll make that motion if I don't have to repeat it.
You don't,
Yeah,
thank you.
I'll second.
Mrs. Callen seconded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait. Oh, got to vote.
We'll vote.
By the way, if you ever get a chance to see Reading 180 or Systems 44, it's unbelievable.
It's amazing.
Kids just love it, and the way it works, the spelling and the reading. Oh.
Will we have another update on that in terms of?
Anytime.
February would be great because we'll have a game.
Okay, we'll find a time and
Yeah, I think it would be helpful just to see. I know the initial data was very positive. It would, and if it continues to be, it would be nice to see that trend.
I was in Persian today. It's just the kids just love it. They get to class on time. It's amazing. Anyway.
8.02, the Westport Bond Project update. Mr. Wendt?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Ritter. It is my pleasure to present this action item to you this evening on the Westport 2009 Bond Project. BCDM Architects designed this plan for us. We received bids on November 17th. We opened them on November 18th. We received 8 bids, and if I can turn your attention to the bid tabulation form attachment, you'll see the 8 bidders that we received bids from. I will point out that one of the bidders did not acknowledge one of the addendums that was sent out, so their bid was not read, but we had 7 others that were. DeWitt & Associates is the low responsible bidder, and I would like to just take a minute and walk through the alternates on this bid tab with you. The first alternate, 1A, is for additional parking space. The second alternate, 1B, is for the rain canopy by the bus lane area. Alternate 2 is for the bleachers within the gym. Alternate 3 is the rain canopy by the main entrance area. Alternate 4, we are not recommending. This was for additional tile work within the restrooms, and we did not see the value for that, so we are not making that recommendation this evening. Alternate 5 was for the additional 4 classrooms that we had as an alternate. Alternate number 6 was an alternate type of roofing that there would be a deduct, but we feel that the original designed 4-ply built-up roof is the best roof for us in this project, so we are not recommending taking that alternate. Alternate number 7 is to replace the vinyl composite tile areas within the building and go with a polished concrete stained floor. That is a unit price that you see there. So depending on the amount of area that we would do within the project, that would be determined. And alternate number 8 is for the monument sign that would go out in front of the school. So the recommendation this evening is to accept all of the alternates with the exception of alternate 4 and alternate 6. And that would bring the total amount up to $11,533,490, and it would be the recommendation that the board approve this contract to DeWitt and Associates for that base bid plus those alternates for that amount.
Questions for Mr. Wendt? Ms. Callan?
I have a couple questions. First, about the design of the school, I think to address maybe the person that addressed the board and some concerns about whether this facility could be used and house a community school concept, because it's my understanding that community schools, although the facility may be important, it's actually the programming and the services and the coordination of services that make a community school. So is there space in here for early childhood classes?
The way that we have it set up currently, we have a number of different special education programs in there. I do not believe that we have early childhood in there at this time. Part of the design, though, as we get into our designs and we look out at future, and one of the things we've done in all of these more recent bond projects is look at where we would add additional space on, so we plan for that ahead of time. There are other programs within the building that the district could make choices with.
And also Westport is within a mile or so of our new early childhood center,
correct.
right? So partnering that way. Okay, but nothing in the design would keep us from bringing in social service agencies, coordinating with other agencies to provide extended days or balanced schedule programming.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
And I think that with taking a good look at this design, I think this is a good base design. If the building were to be added on in the future, or if other programmatic changes were made within it, I think this base design is a solid starting place, which actually would set itself up well and does have flexibility.
If I may respond to that, we do have, for instance, in the design, we have 2 different cafeterias.
Right.
Okay, that'll help us with the before and after school, breakfast in the classroom, the whole works. And then also
or a community meeting room.
Community meeting rooms and things like that, so that's a possibility. The balanced calendar, there's no question that there's plenty of facility and plenty of room for that. Really what we were responding to as far as community is concerned, the community wanted the elementary and the middle school separate from each other, and that's what that's doing with the 2 cafeterias and the library. And then the other thing was the traffic way, the traffic flow, and that's been part of the design as well. So those are the reactions coming from the community at large, and then the internal community is where a lot of the design came from as far as the facility itself.
Well, and I guess that is the next step in my question, because I think there was some reference to that maybe a specific model of community input wasn't used. But it's my understanding, both from my involvement on the board, but also just knowing some people personally that were engaged in input into the design of the school, that I think we need to make sure that
that's communicated, yes.
Right, that the community did have input. Is that right?
Yes, they did.
Right, teachers had
the
input.
charrette process that was referenced to earlier, that was a discussion that we had, and as we got into the project, we were receiving community feedback through other means, and as we looked at the design team and as we were looking at having representative staffs from both Studi and Westport, the design team was getting rather large. So we looked at a lot of different ways to gather that input and make sure, and as you've seen through the design process, how we have integrated the community's input into the traffic flow that Dr. Ritter referred to, and how we separated the middle school from the elementary side with using those shared core spaces.
And that was specifically based on input from the community.
Yes.
I guess, and then, for those of us who are aware of, what was initially budgeted for this project and what we're now asking, what we now anticipate having to pay for this project to be done. And you've alluded to it a little bit. The scope of the project expanded as we got the input from both staff and community members. And so can you say a little bit about maybe those components that were added to the project beyond the initial scope?
And before you answer that, let me ask you a question on the project too, and it'll lead right into that. Did you get a lot of input? I know our last K-8 school construction was Hickory Hills, and I think the community members there have held that up as a model. Have you gotten? Did that help you in designing this?
Well, one of those changes that fed into it was looking at that kitchen design, and as Dr. Ritter referred to, being able to use both the elementary gymnasium area for a serving area and a separate serving area or a feeding area for the middle school students. That came right out of what we learned from going through the Hickory Hills project. So that was additional scope as well, which has helped with at what times the children are eating and really working with the scheduling of the class hours there. But the traffic flow, working through that with the site design and working well with the Parks Department and helping us there, but additional site work to make sure that we could help with that traffic flow that was happening there on Golden Avenue. And then as we looked at the existing site and trying to find the best way to meet those needs of keeping the middle school area and the elementary areas separated, has really driven part of that decision in moving what is currently the all-purpose room and turning that into the new library, so that way middle school students would not have to cross through an elementary area to get to the library and those things. So a lot of that builds up as you go through this design process, which when you look initially at a project and look at square footage and looking at potential programs that you might put in, as you get deeper into the project and you start making those determinations of what's really going to meet the needs of that site and what's going to be ultimately the best thing for students, that's where we ended up.
So would it be fair to say at some point we'll need to make the decision whether the additional investment in this project is better spent now? I mean, if we know the needs are there, is it better to spend it now when the majority of the construction will take place, or do we whittle it down to an initial number that we, and then try to play catch up in the future? Because it is my understanding that a lot of the scope of this project and what we're doing there, we and that community wanted to replicate what we had done at Hickory Hills, because that had been a successful model in terms of a K-8. So it's either like spend it now or probably spend it later. Yes. And with that, and maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit, but I think it's a question that will certainly be asked and needs to be asked, is how do we anticipate funding that additional commitment?
Well, there's a few pieces with the funding. The initial piece obviously is the 09 bond funds. There will be a FEMA reimbursement portion dealing with the safe room that is a part of the project that added some additional scope. There will be some major repair components, and the other possibility, if the sale of the Old Hickory Hills goes through, that is a potential option for the district to use as well.
I think the thing that I would like to say at this point is that this is going to be a fantastic school. And what's really going to be exciting about this school, of course, what's unique about it is that we have the current Westport, and the design or the architectural work around that's going to just, I really think, excite the West Side. And so I think it's wrong for us to step back from that. I think we need to do the best for the children of Westport or of the West Side and West. And so I was in Studi visiting the site. They have 400. They have over 400 students there, and they're excited about their curriculum, what's going on. But they're also excited about the new opportunities as far as the science labs and what the new facility is going to give them. So I would recommend to the board that we stay the course and give them the best we can give them.
Mr. Renner.
I had to walk, I've seen all the plans and I appreciate all those plans, but I had to go walk through. So that was just better for me to actually be there than look at a piece of paper. And I appreciate the principal and people taking time to talk to me about things. There would always be more, that they could do. But to me, the important thing was, as he was talking about the community access to the areas based on the new building and what we could do, that we would be able to have evening, weekend access to any large areas, the gym, the cafeterias, the library, the computer rooms, which are going to be right by the library and be able to be monitored there and so on. Then, as you look at other parts of the building, you would not have to have all of the building opened up if you needed 6 classrooms. You could have 6 classrooms and the rest of the building could be closed. I think the design would let that community do as they come up with ideas about what they would like to see happen here, would allow for those options, for us to say today, here's the best option for you when this is going to be, if we approve it, a year and a half out.
It would be for the start of the 13-14 school year.
Right. So, there's time to discuss other options as this is being done, but to me, the important part was that we haven't closed, as far as I could see, any doors, and as far as he was concerned, we couldn't close any doors. I'm glad you mentioned the park, because looking out the 3rd grade wing windows, you see the huge new swimming pool being built there. Parks Department is building their parking lots, which we can share.
Fields.
They have some parking lots which we will be sharing. We'll be working with them on redoing some of the fields and the walking path.
So I just think can become it. We haven't, if we decide to do this, we haven't made decisions that will not allow people to continue to build on programs that we may not even envision right now. There may be some things down the road that 5 years from now that we don't envision now that this is going to still allow for. So it helped me to walk through and look and walk out and look where things were going to be, and to see the huge area that's going to be available now to the community as well as the students every day. And they've already made some nice improvements in the elementary school. Right. There are some things have already happened in a lot of classrooms. One still doesn't have some floor done because they've taken up the floor, and they're going to, so they're in the process of doing some things to the existing building that have already upgraded. And of course, we did lighting out there and some other things. So there's some things already, to me, that have taken place but I'm excited about getting rid of that all-purpose room and having a gym and doing some things, because there were however many elementary students when I was there, they were all in that all-purpose room, and wow, that was a crowded little area right there.
Chosmer.
The original budgeted amount for this was what?
$7,671,000.
So we're looking at about a little less than $4 million in addition.
Well, and that's before the anticipated reimbursement with the FEMA.
How much is that?
We anticipate a reimbursement of around $1.2 million.
So, but 7.6 with the FEMA addition, and then we get reimbursed 1.2. That was the idea.
No, there's additional cost on top of that. We will get a reimbursement from FEMA for the safe room. It should come out to about $1.2 million.
Okay. But we're still looking at over $3 million money that we're going to have to find outside of the bond issue. Is that correct?
It's actually closer to $2.5 million. We do have.
So we're looking at $3.3 million outside of the bond to finance this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And our options today, as I see them, are to not accept this or to table this, I guess. And what would the effect of that be?
Well, if we table it,
other than obviously pushing back the project, I understand that.
sure. Well, the bids are good for 30 days. We open the bids, or we receive the bids on the 17th of November. One of the issues would be we worked hard to get this bid out during this calendar year in anticipation of all the additional work that will be happening in Joplin, and anticipating that might raise some of our costs as we go forward. So we made a concerted effort to get these projects out this year. So that would probably be the biggest factor that I think we would be looking at as some additional cost. The other factor that we would look at is there are some time constraints associated with the safe room, and we potentially could lose that safe room component. I'd have to, depending on how long we're talking, I would have to look to see if that would be affected or not.
And the reason I ask that is because one of the things that concerns me, obviously, is one of the ways that we could pay this extra $3 million is to pay the $2.5 million we're hoping to get from the sale of Old Hickory Hills, which we've not yet got in our hands. At least I don't think we've got it in our hands yet. And if that money doesn't come in, then one of the other options, I guess, would be to somehow do this through operating funds, either with a lease purchase or something. We've done that before as well. And Steve, I don't know, I'd ask you about whether or not there was a number, what the payment would be on a lease purchase if we did that for the $3 million, or?
Yes, if we did the $2.5 million potentially through an LPC, we would be looking at anywhere from a $200,000 to $300,000 annual payment, depending on whether we went with a 10-year or a 20-year payback.
Okay. And we're all hopeful that the money from the Old Hickory Hills would come in and that we could use that to pay for this $3 million. But if it doesn't, then we're going to be in an already tight year next year, and we're going to have to pull out an additional $200,000 to $300,000 from our operating budget. So I guess that gives me great concern in approving this. And I think especially if I go back to the history of this project, which was not a project that I recall the Westport community coming to us and saying, we've got to do something with Westport, whether, in fact, rather it was the administration's idea of how can we put all of the Bailey and the alternative schools together. Where would they fit? Well, they'll fit in Studi, and we can move all those kids from Studi to Westport. So this was not a situation in my memory where we had a community, clamoring for this convergence of Studi and Westport. Instead, it was this kind of worked for the district, and it freed up that space at Studi, and then allows us to consolidate the alternative schools. So, with that being the history as I remember it, I guess I'm a little troubled being on the line for $3 million more with not a real set in stone way of how we had financed that.
guess I do agree with Mr. Hosmer on the fact that, you know, and I know when we first came talking about it that it was somewhat, didn't generate from that community out there at the time, and as we all lived through that process. And, you know, based on my discussion right now, I don't want to be the one going back and telling them that they're not going to get it, because based on the comments I've heard in the community out there, there's a pump community out there that's excited about a new building going in Westport. To do that, and I'm not, and I have the same concern about the money. I don't make that sound like I'm not concerned about that, because I am. But, you know, as I look back at the 4-year-old bid, we did the bid originally. Estimate. Yeah, not bid. I'm sorry. Like I haven't done this for 30 years. 4-year-old bid estimate, and I know isn't this the LEED certified or LEED design, so it's a green building, which I think there's some benefit to that because it's an existing building, or at least partially an existing building that we can make LEED certified, which I think is a step as we move forward for new buildings or additional buildings down the road, remodeling whatever building it might be, of that experience of taking an existing building and making it green. And I think there's a lot of things have happened with community input that's changed. It's made it more expensive than what we originally had estimated. But I guess my feeling right now is I want to do. I don't want to go back and have to redesign the building. I would rather do it right now, this time, and giving that community something that they can really circle the wagons around, so to speak, and come together, because I think they will, based on conversations that I've had with community members out there. They're pretty excited about it, and I think there's, you know, I have the same concern Mr. Hosmer does about, you know, when we're going to get the $2.5 million. But it's going to happen. If that means that you do an LPC for a short period of time until that happens, then that can happen. I mean, it's not like we don't have options that are not unreasonable options. And I'm not comfortable of pulling the plug on it to not do it at this point. I mean, there's too many things that have added on to it over the years, not added good things that have happened to it to make it a really good project. Unfortunately, it is over, but you know, I think you're talking about a 4-year-old estimate, and if we wait another year, it ain't going to be this cost. So I'm ready to go with it personally.
Questions, comments?
I think initially, at the time as a school district employee, I had some opportunity for input with student community, parents, and teachers, that the possibility of a school along the lines of a K-8 school was just almost a thing of wonderment. Could we have a school like this in our community? So I think maybe some of the initial discussions were, can this really happen for us, and is this too much for us to expect? And now that they're to this point of it appears to be a reality, there's a tremendous amount of excitement. And I'm speaking from family members that live in the community and from teachers I've visited with. And I would certainly at this point in time hate to say no in moving forward to making this a reality for that community, because they do see it as a very real possibility, not just a, could we possibly have a building that looks like Hickory Hills? So.
Yeah, the public told us pretty clearly, I think, in the 2009 bond election, they wanted a project at the Westport site. And I remember talking about it then, and we really are now comparing apples to oranges, because the rapidity in which the estimate had to be made to qualify for some of the stimulus bonds, and then after that gaining what we gained from the Hickory Hills development, and then putting that back into the plans for Westport, I think it's very easy to see why the estimate and the current bid don't match up. But I think it'd be a mistake for us to to not do it right, especially after what we know at Hickory Hills. And I think that reassurances we've gotten from Mr. Lorino and the county and the city and how that project does seem to be progressing, and the hurdles that seem to have been jumped, and I think the confidence I have that project's going to happen make me feel very comfortable proceeding ahead with this. And our plan all along was that to probably put that money from the sale of Hickory Hills back into a capital project, and this is a perfect opportunity for it. We have a recommendation that the board authorize the superintendent or his designee to approve DeWitt & Associates base bid plus alternates 1A, B, 2, 3, 5, 7, and 8 for a total of $11,533,490 for the Westport project. I would take a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Renner?
Second.
Mr. Lee? Thank you, Mr. Chodas. And Mr. Wendt, while you're up there, 8.03, the granting of a drainage easement at Sequoia School.
Thank you. As mentioned, it is a drainage easement. The previous easements that the board has most recently seen are from city utilities. This easement is actually from the city of Springfield, and it is by Sequoia Schools, and it is to do some drainage work. It's a two-piece easement. There's a temporary easement, which is a wider easement to allow them to get the equipment in there to do the work, and then a smaller permanent easement that would be in place. The district would receive the sum of $1 for the temporary easement and $1 for the granting of the permanent easement, and it is the administration's recommendation that the board approves the above referenced temporary and permanent easements to the city of Springfield.
CU pays us $100. The city only pays us $1. We have a recommendation that the board approve the above referenced temporary and permanent easements to the city of Springfield. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Lee?
Second.
Mr. Renner? Thank you.
We'd do a better job of negotiating.
Thank you, Mr. Wendt. 8.04 is the treasurer's report.
Thank you. As always, if you'd open up the attachment to the financial statement, you will see that revenues are up and expenditures are down and compared to budget, so that's all good news. Also, we recently were notified of the amount that we'll be receiving for the property taxes for the month of December, and we've determined that we will not be needing the use of a tax anticipation note this year, so that's also good news. I do want to spend a couple of minutes doing something a little different. What I have here is the payment transmittal. This is the money that we receive from DESE on a monthly amount or monthly basis. This is the payment that we received for the month of November. And if we look at the basic formula, oh my goodness.
Oh, no.
No, it's a public application.
That was interesting.
Yeah. Okay, try this one more time. ASBR. And everybody knows we're 039141.
I'm sure we do.
I bet you do.
How do you go back?
It was a good try.
Yeah.
Techie here.
I tried to do something out of the ordinary. Let's try this. Payment transmittal. Okay. 039141. Okay, November, basic formula, there we go. This is the shorthand version of the formula, and the number that I'd like you to look at is the $44,294,000. That's what DESE is anticipating that we will receive for the year. One thing you might notice is, see this 0.92? They actually, under the formula, we should receive this $48,145,000, but they reduce it because of the reduced funding. So right now they're anticipating that we will receive $44,294,000. If you look at the financial statement, you'll see the budget for the formula is $44,549,000. So looking at this, we're about $250,000 short for the year. However,
Don't leave that page yet.
Okay.
Is that .92? That was the multiplier that was applied to every district to make up for the
Yes.
state, and that
Yes.
was the one that was applied evenly
Yes.
across the board.
That's
And
correct.
is that still,
That
would
is
that
up-
still be considered fully funded?
No, it's not
They're
considered.
not trying to say that?
No.
Okay. I just-
No.
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's quite all right. So once again, looking at the current month, about 250,000 short. If we go back and we look at November of last year and look at the formula, it said 44,725,000. Notice it was 96% last year, but 44,725,000 last year at this time. But if we go to the last month of the year, it goes to 45,172. So it does creep up throughout the year as information is presented to DESE. For example, free and reduced is one of the factors in the formula. Special education weighting, there's something called LEP, then I'm not even going to try and get into what that is, as well as our ADA. So the increase from November to the end of year last year was about $447,000. And so if you add that to the current amount that DESE is saying, the $44,294,000, you come up with $44,741,000, which is actually about, what is that, maybe a little less than 200,000 less than what, or excuse me, more than what we budgeted. So I guess it's to make a long story short, we are right where we want to be at this point in terms of the formula.
Is everybody impressed?
We're
Yes,
right.
I am.
We're right where we thought we'd be, not where we want to be.
Well,
Is that
that's true.
Steve, is that historically held true as well, not just last year? I mean, is that
Yes,
something you
yes,
felt
it
back?
does. It does tend to
Creeps
creep up throughout the year. Yes.
Interesting. Any other questions for Mr. Chodas? And I would take a motion to approve the treasurer's report as presented.
So moved.
Mrs. Cowan?
Second.
Dr. Frederick?
Thank you.
Mr. Chodas, that was impressive. Thank you.
Find a lot of stuff on DESE's website, can't you?
Yeah, it's amazing how much public information there is out there. We always hear of action behind closed doors budgetary, but it's all out there for everyone to see. 9.01, the routine action items. If there is no objection, we may approve these in one motion, that the board approves each of the routine action items as submitted.
So moved.
Mrs. Cowan?
Second.
Mr. Lee? Mrs. Luton had a little glitch on that voting process the past couple times on the routine items that she diagnosed and cured.
All right.
You figured it out?
Yes.
Except you didn't second.
Quotation marks. That's
Yeah.
what it was.
That's right. And we have no other comments from the public, I don't believe. Board comments, legislative report. Anything new that?
There's a number of things. First of all, there's and if Sarah, anybody that went to the PTA, you heard the projections, but also Sarah Lampe brought up a good point. There is a bill that Thompson has put out that is a recommendation as far as meeting the formula. But so the legislature really is looking for an answer to this problem that we have with the formula, and of course to help the public understand that we're talking about the hold harmless districts, which we have 150 of them in the state, and those that are not held harmless, and we are that are really tied to the formula, and we are tied to the formula. And the hold harmless ones are the ones that are benefiting which is hard to say that they're benefiting, but they're benefiting more than those that are into the formula as far as the recession is concerned. And so,
and that goes back, I think.
Goes back 2 years, I believe it is.
The hold harmless goes back to when, I think, Senate Bill.
Oh, yes.
And there was only a few districts at the time that were held harmless. It's gone from a handful to 154 now that are
because of
held
the
harmless.
recession. That's why.
It would be helpful for me to have some sort of definition of that, because
Okay.
I've had a couple people ask me, and I'm not really able to articulate how certain districts qualify and how.
For hold
certain-
harmless?
Mhm.
I believe Mr. Chodes could probably give us a quick explanation of that. It's real quick. He's done it many times.
The quick answer is that the new formula was enacted for the 2005-2006 school year, and what the state said to districts is, if you are going to make less under the new formula than you received in 04-05, then we will hold you harmless, and you'll receive essentially the same amount that you received in 04-05. So those districts are not on the formula and can be interpreted as having received more all along than they should have under the formula.
Exactly.
So it was really a political move to get the formula passed, as I understand it. I mean,
Yes.
and it goes back 6 or 7 years,
Right.
and it hasn't been rectified.
Well, what about their money going forward? Did
They
it
they
go
will
up a certain percentage every year?
No, it stays
Flat.
Well, there's a lot of variables. You know, if the state adequacy target changes, it's not a simple answer. It depends, I guess, would be the answer.
If everything stays constant, that stays
Then
constant.
they would, then they would
Same
receive
amount
the
every year.
same.
If all the other variables were constant, it would stay
So
constant.
there wasn't a modifier every year to
No, they didn't.
jump them up from
It was frozen.
from their hold harmless?
So they wouldn't have that .96 piece underneath their formula or their .92?
No, that does go into the calculation of whether they are hold harmless or not. But no, that wouldn't affect their amount.
That's what the whole economy thing that's tanked has really created a balloon of hold harmless schools, just because it would have put them down below the 204, 205 threshold.
So anyway, MASA, Missouri Association of School Administrators, is recommending that we freeze everyone where they're at as far as the formula is concerned and held harmless, and then eventually rewrite the formula. Is the recommendation, but I don't believe the legislature, especially in the Senate, is going to allow that to happen. So we're going to have to watch that very closely. Of course, we are really impacted pretty heavily by either way it goes, except that if it's frozen. So anyway, that's the legislative issue there.
The other legislative issue or state issue we heard was an estimate of possibly $800 million shortfall in the state budget for the following year. So again, how much it impacts us depends on some of these issues.
I think one
For
of the
2012-13?
Right.
anywhere from 200 to 800 million.
So please shop locally.
I think one of the fears out there right now is there's a lot of discussion on trying to tie all these education bills together. How do we fix St. Louis? How do we do the Turner Fix in St. Louis? How do we do other tax credits, all that, and vouchers, whatever you want, whatever, name de jour, whatever they call it, and putting these all together in some kind of big omnibus bill. And so, hopefully we can divide those up and keep them on target as what's we need to deal with this issue and that issue. But I know there's a lot of discussion about let's just throw it all together and see if we can mess it up.
The real thing with this whole picture is that St. Louis is getting better, and they're very close to being provisionally accredited. And if they become provisionally accredited, the Turner fix is taken care of. And so, so there is a real issue there that DESE needs to deal with as far as St. Louis is concerned. And of course, Kansas City is trying to solve the problem the way St. Louis did, and they can't because they're under different statutes, which is really strange to me. St. Louis is an island unto its own world. Yeah, that's the best way to say that. And so anyway, the Kansas City is really in far more of a mess than St. Louis is. But either way, the legislators are trying to use tax credits, vouchers, charters to solve the problem when St. Louis is saying, wait a minute, the charters are the ones that pulled us down. They're the ones that are hurting our accreditation. Can we get rid of them? So that's really kind of interesting as far as that whole scenario is concerned. So I think there's going to be a lot of stories being told on January 17th at the next State Board of Education. So,
while you're on that topic, anything else from tell us about your meeting last Friday?
Well, last Friday we had a meeting that had been canceled several times, meeting the urban districts with basically Kansas City and Springfield. That had been scheduled, I guess, back in September when all the Kansas City thing kind of blew up in their face, and so we kind of postponed it. We had a really, really good meeting with those two, and I can tell you I'm incredibly impressed with the leadership at Kansas City and St. Louis.
Right.
The new superintendent at Kansas City is really, really sharp. I really like him. I think he's going to be, I don't know whether he's looking permanent or not. That wasn't the issue, but I really like his approach and how they're looking at solutions. But we haven't verified this, but we were told that we may be the largest district in the state now. Mm-hmm. I haven't verified that. Largest district overall. But I haven't. I have not confirmed that. St. Louis told us that that you're now the largest, but I can't. I don't know that. And I also found out that, which I didn't know, that we are designated as an urban district, which concerns me a little bit from the standpoint of as legislation goes forward, it's real easy to insert language and just say urban districts, and then all of a sudden we get thrown into the same discussion and we don't have the same issues at all with the other ones.
Right.
I can't control that from the standpoint of designation, but we're not the same, and so that's always concerned me that you always got a St. Louis fix and a Kansas City fix, and very easily the next step is let's get a Springfield fix, which there's nothing broken to do that. But it's real easy to call it a different name, and all of a sudden unintended consequences come about, and we end up getting stuck. So I think it's really important for us to stay close legislatively to what's going on with St. Louis and Kansas City to know what's happening there. But as you all have read, Kansas City, St. Louis, as Dr. Ritter said, has really, really come along. They're really close to provisional. In fact, there are districts out there that are worse off than they are that are still provisionally accredited. Mm-hmm. So there's some perception that's got to be changed to do that. And like I said, if we didn't have the charters, they'd be in good shape. They would be accredited if it wasn't for the charter schools.
Interesting.
And I think they're like 0.3 of a point away from accreditation, provisionally accredited. So they're working on it. Good. Kansas City, there's fixes out there for let's divide them up, let's break them up and give them to other districts, let's get the mayor involved and let them take over, let's bring in a special administrative board like St. Louis. It's just everybody's got a solution. The only good thing that's come out of this so far, it has really pulled the community together in Kansas City to try to address their problems. And I've not, in the last 6 years, I've not seen a community go from one almost extreme to the other extreme of support for their school. Whether it's desperation or they're just finally coming out and doing that, I don't know. But I'm impressed with their leadership that they can make something happen, but I don't know what the solution's going to be from Dr. Castro and the state. I know they're trying to accelerate possibly taking over the district. I don't know if they'll get that done, but there's some discussion about that. But all in all, I mean, it sounds all bad, but it was a really, really good meeting. I think there's going to be some real opportunities for us, the three of us, to continue the dialogue and work together in Jeff City to make some things happen or not happen, as a case may be, to do that. So, and it's something we got to be. We can't just sit back and watch what's going on in St. Louis and Kansas City more. We're going to have to be involved in the process because it may potentially impact us. You know, a Turner fix could impact us when you start talking about open enrollment and charter schools, and some of the solutions they're coming up with are very good with respect to that, and hopefully legislators will listen.
St. Louis has got a great solution, by the way. All of our kids that are in unaccredited schools should go to our accredited schools before they're allowed to leave the district, and he has quite a few schools that are accredited.
Very good schools.
So I think that's a great solution, but the tax credited people don't want that to happen. So anyway.
Well, thank you all for spending your time up there.
That was
Friday.
great.
Any other issues? Mr. Hosmer?
Going back to the foundation formula issue, and we'd seen some projections of, I think Steve had sent out the two different scenarios on basically how you divvy up the cuts. And for us, for this district, it looks like it's a $7 million swing. I wonder, I know Norm said the superintendents have come out with a proposal on how you divvy up those cuts, but I wonder if we as a board should pressure, advocate for MSBA to come up with a position on this, because otherwise the legislators are going to divvy up those cuts, and who knows what they're going to come up with. But you know, we should have some pull with MSBA. Surely coming up soonly. I think
somebody hears.
We may know the president.
Has MSBA addressed the issue at all?
No. Because it basically is pitting schools against each other. And
so maybe that's where we would.
I mean, this may be a solution that's the best, that nobody's happy with, but it's the best solution. We have not been approached with that. In fact, we hadn't even seen the proposal yet.
Right, we haven't.
MSBA hadn't even had
I guess just going back to
that.
letting the legislators make the decision versus school districts.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree with that totally.
I can add to that. We are being proactive. Last week, John Everest attended a meeting of the Southwest MASA, and they are proposing a compromise between the two scenarios, and they in fact contacted my counterpart up in Jeff City, and he was already working on a compromise and was working with St. Louis and Kansas City and other districts. So I think what we will do is we will join that effort and develop a compromise that hopefully the majority, if not all the districts, can agree to, and then present that to the legislature, and then hopefully when they see that, they just rubber stamp it.
I think the proactive approach will be taken as far as
That'll
rather
never
than let
happen.
them dish it out to us, that we're going to go to them with something. I just don't know what that something is yet.
So you'll keep us posted on that end of it.
Yes.
If there's an opportunity for us to, as a board, address give our input to the MSBA Board of Directors, you'll let us know when that time might be right, and we'll
Make that happen.
We'll input. Thanks.
One other thing, Dr. Prater, not on this issue. Norm, you touched on breakfast in the classroom, and we had asked for I'd ask for an analysis of kind of how high we go up into our schools and expand that and not cost the district any money. Do you know where that's at, that analysis?
I believe we're still obtaining the information, or do we have any new information?
Actually, we've just finished putting it together, so that's something we'll be sending out shortly.
Thank you.
Your financial operations report
Oh,
is.
I'm sorry, I have something on
Yes,
other. It was
other.
just, I had passed Norm a note because I know our speaker tonight talked about community schools, and I think it's important that our community know that those discussions are happening within Springfield about the initiation of the community school concept here. And I know that's coming out of our strategic planning and talks with certain neighborhoods and school communities. And do you have an idea of when that might come to the board or when we'll...
It's going to have to come to the board, and Christine Giddings is with us today, this evening, and she shared with Kids First Initiative a timeline. Okay, so Christine, if you would, but I do think we are looking at a wraparound services next school year, and we're looking for partnerships with those. And then eventually the following year is when we would kick in, next year we would look into the balanced calendar. The following year we would start in with the balanced calendar. But is there anything to add with that?
No, that is something that we are in the process of studying. That is a very fluid timeline, but we will be coming to you with more information as that progresses.
But the idea of a community school as presented to us tonight through the speaker is something that is already being considered and actually putting some structure around in terms of community input and...
Yes,
Okay.
yes, those discussions are taking place.
Yeah, and I think that that's important to know. I mean, we've had some, certainly the Comer project was kind of a precursor to that community school idea and some of the other things that we've tried to do, but the actual calling it, what it is in terms of what other communities call it, it's certainly something that's
caring
under
communities.
consideration. Yeah, caring communities would have been part of that. I mean,
And the ECHO.
the
ECHO
project.
grant.
I mean, there's been lots of pieces, but it hasn't necessarily been called that name here. So, okay.
Right.
Thanks.
Yeah, and we really have a number of schools that are vying for that pretty hard. So,
Well, what I hope is we don't take one plan and try to put it in
everyone's different.
Right.
the same thing, that we're able to develop 3 or 4 different ones. And I keep saying this time, and I know it gets old, but if we're doing those things and we find what's working, then we need to take those things. They're not, I don't like pilot, because if you use pilot, then somebody thinks but there are things that might work better, but and you can look at everything outside Springfield, but if we have the opportunity in Springfield and can develop 3 or 4 different with some differences, and then see, we've got everything in place for our monitoring of scores and what does better for kids and attendance, and all those things are already in place. So then we would be able to take those things and put them in all schools. I just think if we don't do that, there's no reason to do this at all. To benefit 2 or 3 schools when we have the number of schools we have out there with students in need would just not make any sense. So the big picture to me would be, how are we going to monitor it, and when we see it, parts of it are successful, how can we take that to every school so that we are investing in all of our students? And I think, to me, that's one of the most exciting things that, as we talked about the future, people say, why are you excited? Because there's some things out there that I think that truly can make huge differences, and we're just about to get there to start some of those things. We're just almost there. So I think that's the excitement when you start talking about that, and we may want to push it too fast rather than, like you said, we need to do some things next year and then the year after. When you see what you think it can do, you have a tendency to go maybe too fast instead of doing it right.
Thanks. We do need to have an executive session tonight. I'd take a motion at the board meeting executive session following this meeting to discuss legal and personnel matters as provided in sections 610.021, 1, 3, and 13 RSMO.
So moved.
Mrs. Callen,